guys, welcome back. Today we're talking about Mercury retrograde. Amongst all the other things that are happening, we have to have Mercury retrograde in the middle of all of it. And boy, I can't help but think about how there's a repeating theme going on in the astrology right now. And that is a closing out of one chapter and the beginning of another. We are in the middle of eclipse season, and as I'm taping this, it is the day after the eclipse in Virgo, which was a lunar eclipse, a eclipse of closing things out, cleaning things up, clearing things out of your life. A closing one door in preparation for a new door opening, right? Because we have a solar eclipse happening in 2 weeks in Aries, and that's where we're going to have a door opening. And in the middle of eclipse season, we have Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde. And they're both starting their retrograde in Aries and ending it in Pisces, which is about that new beginning, but yet going back to the past to close things out, and also, to think about what you're envisioning to manifest next, what your next move is going to be, because Aries is about the tangible, physical things in our life. And this Mercury retrograde is, I think, going to be one of the more significant ones that we've seen in a while, because it starts at the same degree that we are going to have the Aries solar eclipse on March 29th. Aries, Mercury is stationing at 9 degrees of Aries and is going to go back to 26 degrees of Pisces. Now, not only does Mercury start at the eclipse point, but it ends its retrograde conjuncting the North Node. And so those two factors right there tell me that there are some fated changes happening, because the North Node is where you're being pulled towards, the North Node of fate, right? We just had an eclipse conjuncting the South Node, letting go, releasing. And we started out this week on March 11th, where Mercury hit 8 degrees of Aries and met up with Venus retrograde. And they both had a conversation with each other, which signaled to Mercury to not only stop in his tracks, but to follow Venus throughout her retrograde cycle. And so Mercury and Venus are having an ongoing conversation over the next 3 weeks, where Mercury is following Venus's lead. And there's this focus on what you want when we're talking about Venus retrograde. There's always a focus on what do you want, what do you value, what do you love, your money, what it is you're trying to create, and what do you find beautiful and peaceful and harmonious. And Mercury is going to be echoing Venus's influence. They're both retrograding with each other over the same territory at the same time, and I don't recall ever seeing this happen. So that in itself means that this is significant, and this is happening during eclipse season, which makes it more significant. And then in the middle of it, we have Neptune entering Aries, which we haven't seen since the late 1800s. I forget exactly which year it was, but none of us have seen it in our lifetime. So we have a major shift that is going to happen. I feel like I'm repeating myself in some of the most recent videos, because the theme is the same. When we're talking about eclipse season, we're talking about one door closing, another opening, right? We're talking about releasing and starting something new, closing something out, moving on to a new beginning, right? Now, when we're talking about Venus and Mercury retrograding at the same time, we have to think about the themes of Venus and Mercury. So Mercury, the mind; Venus, the heart. Mercury, agreements; Venus, money. Mercury, your thoughts; Venus, creations. Mercury, what you're speaking; Venus, what you're desiring. And there's like a tango happening with Mercury and Venus, where, you know, they're interacting with each other. And Venus is leading the way. And we're not going to see Mercury make any connections with anything until March 24th, when Mercury Cazimis the Sun. So essentially the first aspect that we see happening is Mercury getting a reset from the Sun. And there can be this light bulb moment. And this happens at 4 degrees Aries, by the way. So there can be a light bulb moment, a reset, a revisit from someone or something from the past. You know, with Venus and Mercury retrograde at the same time, you can put money on it that somebody from the past is going to re-enter your life, whether it be to, you know, reconnect and, you know, reconcile, or whether it be to finish some unresolved issues, or, you know, really resolve what needs to be resolved to be able to walk away, you know, whole, right? Then we see on March 27th, Venus will re-enter Pisces, where she's exalted, and she's going to immediately conjunct Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces. And obviously, we'll see 2 days later, Mercury will do the same thing. And in the background, we have Saturn making a sextile to Uranus. Saturn is at 24 degrees of Pisces. Uranus is at 24 degrees of Taurus. And this sextile is going to be in effect from March 27th through April 13th. It will be exact. And it will continue even after that, because when Saturn goes to 25, so will Uranus. And so there will be an ongoing influence between Saturn and Uranus, which is going to help bring change, long-lasting change. Uranus wants to shake things up, break things through, you know, and disrupt the, you know, status quo. And Saturn wants stability and wants to put in the hard work and the discipline to accomplish things. And when Saturn is connecting with Uranus, they want to accomplish something of value, right? That honors what you value, especially in regards to love and money. There's a major highlight with all love and money topics. And it's not necessarily for everyone going to be romantic love. It could be, you know, love that you have for your friends, your family, or even the networks that you're associated with. Money can be about your financial goals, your career goals, you know, what it is you're trying to accomplish for the long term in that sense. But there could also be, you know, a focus on what you're trying to create that's in line with your values, because there's Pisces energy at play. Venus is very much, you know, she loves to create things that are harmonious and beautiful. And that is going to be like the scaffolding of the retrograde cycle, is Saturn sextiling Uranus. They're going to be supporting the change that is underway. And we will see, after Venus and Mercury re-enter Pisces, now we're going to have yet again another highlight of Pisces energy, a lot of activations happening, because Mercury will not only conjunct Pisces when conjunct Neptune when it enters Pisces, but then will go to conjunct the North Node, we will see Neptune entering Aries on the 30th, and Venus will be conjuncting the North Node when that happens. And 2 days later is when Mercury will conjunct the North Node. And then on April 5th, Mercury retrograde, sorry. On April 5th, Saturn will move to 25 degrees of Pisces, and Venus retrograde will meet up with Saturn. And so this meeting between Venus and Saturn is, for one, favorable because Venus is exalted. And so it is going to be a beneficial meeting. And this could be establishing a commitment to something that you're trying to create, establishing some boundaries that may be needed because we're talking about Saturn after all. There could be a serious meeting regarding your goals, what you're trying to accomplish when we're talking about Saturn long term, what you're trying to create long term. There's a serious tone to this, and also, a tone of focusing on the long term. And then 2 days later, we will see Mercury station direct at 26 degrees of Pisces, and seconds away from perfectly conjuncting the North Node. So essentially, Mercury ends the retrograde cycle conjuncting the North Node. And we have Saturn and Venus conjunct at 25 degrees of Pisces. And all of them, the North Node, Mercury, Saturn, Venus, are all making a trine to Mars at 25 degrees of Cancer. And they're all sextiling Uranus at 25 degrees of Taurus. And so how do we sum up what this means? What it means is we're all in for some fated changes of some sort. You have to look at where Pisces and Aries rules in your chart to get an idea of what areas of life you're going to see some changes happening. You can also look at where Cancer and Taurus rule in your chart because those areas will be highlighted as well. But there's a fated, very strong fated component to this Mercury retrograde cycle because it's following Venus retrograde and it's during eclipse season. And so, we just had the Virgo lunar eclipse. And so there's a clearing out with that eclipse, especially with Virgo. Virgo likes to clean things up and tidy things up. You could be, tidying things up in your home literally to prepare for a change that you're making in your home. Maybe you're preparing to sell it or, remodel or what have you. But, the eclipse was conjuncting the South Node. So it's a very, fated, clearing out, releasing, completions, all that. And then we have the Aries solar eclipse, which is, a solar eclipse is always about new beginnings, but Aries, is the first sign of the zodiac. So it's a very tangible, physical new beginning in that area of your chart. So, I want you all to take a look at where these degrees are in your chart, because you'll get an idea of what's going to be transpiring during this time. There could be some fated decisions or announcements, news, moves, travel that are happening during this time frame, more so when we get to the Aries solar eclipse, that are going to be long lasting because of that Saturn influence, but beneficial because of Venus's influence. And there's going to be a focus on love, money, all things beautiful and harmonious and creative and, all the things that you find, to be luxurious and, that make you happy, right? And there's a sense of honoring your desires too with this. So, I think we're all in for a really strong Mercury retrograde that has a lot of faded components to it. For those of you that are reconnecting with people from the past, you know, there could be a very faded reason for that reconnection. For those of you that are making changes in your career, there is, you know, a major new beginning that is going to be available for you. And, you know, so you see the theme that's happening. Now, obviously, with Mercury retrograde, we have to think, you know, look at the details. Don't rush to sign any contracts. We're in Venus and Mercury retrograde, so don't make big purchases, you know, expect travel delays, all that typical Mercury retrograde stuff. But to encapsulate everything as a whole, I think the Venus and Mercury retrograde happening at the same time, covering the same territory, and they're happening at the eclipse degree, okay, means that we're in a preparation time for a major new beginning, because that solar eclipse in Aries is a new beginning, a major new beginning. Now, some people will feel this more significantly than others. You know, there are times in our life where we may not be as affected by eclipses as other times. But I think collectively, there will be a lot of people who will see this happening in their life. And if you don't have anything major happening in your life, you probably have a lot of people around you that do have significant new beginnings happening for them. Astrology is all about cycles, right? So sometimes we go through cycles where there's like a lull, and sometimes there's cycles where there's a lot of, you know, it's like a roller coaster of, you know, just trying to ride the wave and, you know, see where you end up. But this one is, you know, this time period of March and April is very, very strong for changes. And we're going to see not only Neptune move into Aries, but Saturn will move into Aries, and then Jupiter will go into Cancer. And I've talked about this a couple of times. We have a lot of significant energy shifts up ahead for us. And I think this is just a preparation for all of it. You know, the Venus and Mercury retrograde. I think it's a preparation time to really think about what you want to make tangible. You know, what's going to make you happy? What are your goals? What are you trying to, you know, create in your world? Because if you think about that and honor, you know, your truth, the energy is going to be ripe for you to make things happen and make those changes. So for once, I'm going to say I'm actually excited about Mercury retrograde. And I know, you know, a lot of people don't usually get excited about it because they always, you know, have these little blips that happen during it. But I think this one is one for the books, and we need to pay attention to what's going on. Pay attention to what may have come up on Tuesday, March 11th, because that could give you a clue as to what's going to be, you know, on the table for discussion and consideration during the Mercury retrograde, as well as what's on the table for the Aries solar eclipse. You know, Venus and Mercury meeting in the sky, that, you know, you could have seen something come up that is going to be revisited and talked about over the course of the next few weeks. So I hope this helps you understand what you can expect from this Mercury retrograde. I am excited to hear what happens for all of you guys. I know, you know, some people dread it, but I think this one's going to be a good one. I just have that feeling. And I think we all just need to ride the wave and see where we end up after the Aries solar eclipse. I think many are going to, you know, end up where they may not have realized they were going. So I love it. I love astrology, and I think, you know, if we pay attention to it, we can, you know, easily navigate the changing of the tides. So if you found this helpful, please like the video, share your comments. I love interacting with all of you. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please do so. Help me grow the channel so one day I can do this full time and talk about astrology all day, every day. So I really appreciate you guys. Have a great week. Take care.